ground. And then I'll go to sleep. And in the morning, I'll know that you're going to be with me if the fleece is wet and the ground is dry. So he puts the fleece out, he goes to bed, he wakes up the next morning, and sure enough, he's able to wring water out of the fleece. Thank you, God. That's the sign I was looking for. Don't get mad at me for asking this, but I'm feeling pretty good about this, but is it possible? Could you just give me one more sign? Just one more sign. He says, here's what I'm thinking. Tonight, kind of like last night, before I go to bed, I'll put the fleece out. I'll go to sleep. And how about in the morning when I wake up, that the fleece will be dry and the ground will be wet? And sure enough, he puts the fleece out. In the morning, he wakes up and the fleece is dry. And the ground is all wet. He has the sign that he's been looking for. And so now we pick up in chapter 7. So I want you to follow along as I read the 8 verses. It says, early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all of his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Morah. The Lord said to Gideon, you have too many men. I can't deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me, saying, my own strength has saved me. Now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remained. But the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will send them out for you there. If I say, this one will go with you, he shall go. But if I say, this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. So Gideon took the men down to the water. There the Lord told him, separate those who lap the water with their tongues as a dog laps from those who kneel down to drink. 300 of them drank from cupped hands, lapping like dogs. All the rest got down on their knees to drink. The Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites home, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and trumpets of the others. Isn't the Bible amazing? I mean, that's an incredible story filled with all kind of twists and turns. So here's Gideon. He's heard the call. He's gathered 32,000 men to fight in this battle. I can imagine him walking through the troops. 32,000 people have gathered, 32,000 men, and he's walking through the troops, and he's giving strategy for battle. And he's casting vision for battle. And he's speaking encouraging words. High five. Guys, we got this. God's with us. We're going to go in the strength that comes from God. Let's celebrate God. And the guys are chanting and they're saying, got it, got it, got it, got it. And suddenly, Gideon hears a voice. And it's God's voice. And I imagine, if I were Gideon, you wouldn't be able to believe what you're hearing. Saying, what, God? Am I hearing you right? Too many men? God, I'm concerned if I have enough men. They have 135,000 men to fight to my 32,000. And now you're saying that we don't have enough men? Oh, we have too many men? God, can you explain? And God's response is, Gideon, I know Israel all too well. And I know that if I send you into battle with 32,000 men, that when you win the battle, they will pridefully boast, look what we did in our power and our strength. And they will fail to give credit to me who brought the victory, because it's my power and it's my strength. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pull the men together, and I want you to give them an out. And so Gideon pulls all the men together. God's told him what to do. And I can see he's got all the... It took a lot to just get the 32,000 together. And the last one, he says, attention men! Men, can I have your attention? I have a really important announcement to make right now. I want to thank you all for being willing to go and fight this battle. I commend you on that, but I also recognize that there may be some of you who are anxious and you are afraid, and you've even questioned if you'll come home alive from the battle. And so at God's direction, here's what I want to tell you today. If you are fearful, if you have anxiety, if you've been doubting whether you should be fighting this battle or not, right now, with no questions asked, you can go home. You are free to go. And I can imagine Gideon saying, surely there'll be a handful that'll go. But suddenly he begins to watch an exodus of 22,000 men. 22,000 men are saying, I'm afraid. I'm not afraid to admit it. I want to live. So if he's saying I can go home and there's no question, there's no condemnation, I would just say, guys, I love you. I'm thinking about you, but I just got to get out of jail free card, and I'm going home to Mama. I'm going to go home to the kids. And so he watches 22,000 men. So he starts with an army of 32,000. Now 22,000, so he's down to an army of 10,000 men. And as he's thinking through this, he's probably trying to re-strategize now. He hears God speak again. And once he gets like, what? Am I hearing right? You think I still have too many men? How can that be? God, they've got 135,000 men. And you're calling me to fight with now less than 10,000. God, that's right. That's right. I'm going to send the army out for you. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take the men down to the spring, and I want you to invite them to drink. And when they get there, here's what I want you to know. I'm going to thin out your army. And the ones that I say go, they go. But if I say they don't go, they don't go. So Gideon and the 10,000 men begin to make their way down to the spring. And 9,700 men get down on their knees and they drink directly from the spring. And there's another 300 men who they kneel down, they take water in the cup of their hands, and they begin to lap it like a dog. And God says, those 300 that drank like a dog, those are your men. That's your army. Don't you think Gideon was thinking, could you not give me the 9,700? Why just the 300? And God said, those are your men. Those are who you're going to take in the battle. And he gives a final word of assurance. With these 300 men, I will save you and I will give you the Midianites. See, God's always true to his promise. And God, when God says there's victory, because we have victory through Jesus Christ, there is victory. God never goes back on that. Amen. We can always trust that God's going to do what he says and that God's working a plan, even when that plan does not make logical sense to us. Even in the seemingly impossible, God is able to do what we can't even begin to imagine that he would do. And that's what he did here. And I don't have time to read the rest of the story to you, but I would encourage you, please read it at home. Because here's what happens. Gideon takes the 300 men into battle against the 135,000 men. And guess who wins? The Israelites win with 300 men. Because God is bigger. God is bigger. So, let me ask, what does Gideon's story tell us about the power of God? There's three things that I think. God is able to take a little and get more than enough. God is able to take a little and make it much more than enough. God is bigger than the little bit that we have to offer, and God is bigger than the whole lot that we have to offer. And in our seemingly impossible situations, it's not about what we have, but it's about who we trust. We don't trust in ourselves. We don't trust in the troops around us, whatever that might be. But we put our trust in God and not ourselves. We trust in him alone because God is able to take just a little bit and make it more than enough. The second thing, God is able to take 450 to 1 odds and make it turn into victory. Think about this. 135,000 Midianites, 300 Israelites. That means that every one Israelite soldier, there were 450 soldiers that were able to fight against that one. And who won? The Israelites won. God was able to take the odds that were stacked against him and turn it into victory. And there will be times in our lives where it's going to seem like all the odds are stacked against us. And we can't move forward. We can't get a break. We just can't make it happen. And guess what? We can't make it happen. But God, in that seemingly impossible situation, can take the odds that are stacked against us and make the impossible possible. He does it every single time. Finally, God is able to work through our weakness for his glory. God stripped down Gideon's army from 32,000 to 300 so that he could work the plan that he had set forth. Oftentimes in our lives, in our seemingly impossible situations, it will at least feel like God is stripping us down to nothing so that we can become obedient. In our weakness, he can work out the plan that he set in motion. You see, it's really easy for us to take credit. And when we're stripped down, we can't take credit, but we have to realize that God is bigger. So let me ask this. How do we position ourselves to experience God's power in our seemingly impossible situations? Well, it begins by putting our trust and our confidence in God's ability and not our own. It's very easy for us to take credit for something that's not ours to take credit for. If we're going to boast in anything, then our boast must be that our confidence comes through Jesus Christ. In 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 4 and 5, it says, "Such confidence as this is ours through Christ before God. Not that we are confident in ourselves to claim anything for ourselves, but our confidence comes from God." It's not about how much we can muster up. It's not about self-confidence, but it's about relying on God, because through Jesus Christ, I can do all things. That's where our confidence comes from. The second thing, God doesn't need our ability. He needs our obedience. Can you imagine what Gideon must have been facing when he has to stand before the 32,000 men to say, if any of you are afraid, you can go home, because he doesn't really know what the outcome's going to be. He might hope that it's going to be just a few men, but it could have been the whole army. And so what logically didn't make sense, that he would dismiss part of his army, it didn't logically make sense. It was necessary for him to be obedient so that God could work out the plan of victory that he had set in motion. And finally, we position ourselves to experience God's power in our seemingly impossible situations when we recognize that worship opens the way to the Word of God. We stopped at verse 8, but I want to read you just a few more verses beginning in verse 13. On in the story, Gideon goes down into the Midianite camp and he spies. And picking up in verse 13, it says, Gideon arrived just as a man was telling a friend his dream. I had a dream, he was saying. A round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed. His friend responded, this can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down and he worshipped. He returned to the camp of Israel and called out, get up! The Lord has given the Midianite camp into your hands. So God gave Gideon a sign that he didn't even actually ask for. He was able to overhear this dream and the interpretation of the dream. And when he heard, he had such assurance that God was going to do what he said he was going to do, that he bowed down and he worshipped. And then he went back with great faith and he proclaimed to the troops, get up, guys. This is it. God is going to give the Midianites into our hands. Worship was preparatory in the victory. And the same is true for us. We have to live a lifestyle of worship. It's not just about a Sunday morning when we come together for 20 to 25 minutes of singing together and worshiping together. but it's daily, that it's how we live out our life, that every day our lives are filled with gratitude to the greatness of God, and that we find ourselves bowing down and worshiping because of who He is and what He's continually doing in our lives. And as we do that, it prepares the way so that our focus is no longer on ourselves or our impossible situation, but our focus is on God, the God who is bigger.